a will do? Does anybody know? Okay, almost everybody in the room has one, and nobody knows what it does. That's kind of scary, and this is why we come along and do these things. A lot of us to get a will just because somebody told us to. You go talk to your financial advisor, you go talk to an attorney, and they sit down and be like, you need a will. And then you get one, and you go home and you put it somewhere, and then we never really think about it again. The good news is that most wills don't really need continually updated. A lot of times attorneys kind of put out this myth that your will needs updated every 3 years. Has anybody ever heard that? They just want to come hang out with you, see you again, and that's fine. But usually a will doesn't really need updated unless somebody that was in your plan changes. So let's talk about what a will does. If my spouse passes, they give everything to me. And whenever we both pass, split it equally between the kids. That's probably what a lot of you guys' wills say. So the executor, or executrix if it's a female, it's just a Latin word that gets feminized. Then she's going to get my death certificate, she's going to get my will. Can she get a copy of my will, or does it have to be the original? In rare circumstances, it could be a copy, but it is a way lot easier with an original. What happens if I scribbled on it? You cannot write on your will. Say that I have in there that my daughter gets 50%, my son gets 50%, and I go in there and scribble one out and say 60-40 now, the whole thing's trash. You can't do it like that. Will has to be witnessed by at least 2 people that are not related to you. So it can't be your spouse and your daughter. Then in Georgia, we have another thing that we like to use on wills called a self-proving affidavit. So whenever you go back to your room or you go back to your home and you look at your will after this talk, one of the things that you're going to look for is there 2 sets of signatures? The first set of signatures is you and your witnesses. The second set of signatures is your witnesses saying that you weren't crazy whenever you signed the thing. It's called a self-proving affidavit. What happens if you only have 1 set of signatures? Your will's not scrapped. But what do we have to do you think? Whenever you pass away, we have to go track those people down. What's the big problem with that? You probably don't know who those people really were. Even if you come into my office and we give you that second set of signatures, imagine you had to go track those people down. You can't do it. You're going to call my office and you'll be like, Josh, back 10 years ago, you had a lady that worked for you named Tiffany. Where's she at? And I'll be like, oh God, I don't know. So that's why you want to make sure you have that second set of signatures on there. Often what happens whenever people do their own wills, it might be somebody that comes and grabs you from your room and says, hey, your neighbor's doing a will. Do you mind come being a witness on this thing so that we can get this done for mom? And you guys will say, yeah, I don't think you're being bad. I don't think you're trying to steal from your mom. I'll come do this. But then how do they track you down years down the road, especially if mom moves out of state or something like that? They can't. And then we can't prove the will. And that's a problem. After we know that the will is good enough to go through probate, what is probate? It's a type of court. If you guys live here and pass away, you go down to Marietta. It's not the big courthouse right on the square. It's the one behind that. It's a smaller court. We only have 1 judge in Cobb County. Her name's Kelly Wolf. She's a great lady. But you got to go through this crazy process. What's the purpose of probate?
Validation.
A lot of people think that the process is to get the stuff to your heirs. And that's not really true, because if that was the case, you could just do it. You just transfer stuff to your kids. The process of probate is really designed to protect creditors. And that's why it takes so long. So Colleen is my executrix. Is going to take my will down to the probate court. She's going to fill out a 15-page form. Whenever she fills out that form, she's going to get my daughter and my son to sign a copy of it. That's what's called acknowledgments. and then she files that with the court. The judge is going to review that. It takes about 2 weeks. Then they're going to call Colleen and say, hey, everything looks good. Come in and take your oath. What's she taking an oath for? To promise that she's not going to steal from my estate. How much does probate cost? Because we've heard that probate's expensive probably, right? It costs about 3% of your estate. So if you have $1 million, I know nobody loves math. How much is 3% of that? 30,000. Yeah, not quite 300,000. I'd be a lot richer if it was. But so that's about 30,000. And so most people try and avoid that process because of the length of time and because of what it ultimately costs. How do people avoid probate whenever we know that it's not a will that helps us avoid that?
Trust.
Now, trust is a way to do that. What are some other ways to do that?
Keep your money away before you die.
Die broke. That is an option. So if you die in Georgia with less than $10,000, good news is you don't have to go through probate. Bad news is you're probably pretty stressed as you got towards those end of days. Most of us that say that we want to die broke, the problem is timing, right? We don't want to get broke too early. And sometimes we don't know what the back end costs. One of the ways that a lot of people, whenever they first reach out to us, talk about trying to avoid probate is putting their kids' names on stuff. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands because I'm going to tell you how scary this is in a minute. But a lot of you guys in this room probably have your kids' names on stuff. What do we think some of the problems with that are? Do we think our kids are going to steal from us? No, that's not what I'm talking about here. What it is unintentional issues. Let's say that I put my daughter on my bank account and I got 50 grand in my bank account. She gets sick or she gets a fall and she goes over to Keystone. She racks up a big medical bill. Her health insurance doesn't pay it, or maybe she's in between jobs and she doesn't have health insurance. What happens whenever Keystone comes knocking on her door for that money? She's going to say, I'm broke. I can't pay you. If they do collections on her, what are they going to find?
It's joint account.
A joint account with 50 grand in it. If somebody owed you money and you find out that they had an account with 50 grand, what would you do? Say, give me my money. And she's going to say, no, that's Dad's money. That's not my money. But the reality of the law is because she could walk into the bank and take that 50 grand out at any point in time, so can her creditors. So can Keystone. Now there is a thing called POD. Has anybody ever heard that term? Payable on death. You already have this on things like your 401k, your IRA, what we call beneficiary designations, that says if you pass, give my money to these people. That does solve the creditor problem. So if she can walk into my account and get the money, so can her creditors, who else can do it? Her spouse if she gets divorced. A lot of us have had children who've gotten divorced throughout their lives. Imagine if they're joining your assets. A big part of this is especially whenever we put the kids on a house. That's kind of scary to think about. Our house is usually our biggest nest egg as we start to age. Whenever we have that $300,000-$400,000 asset and we put somebody else's name on it and they go through a divorce, usually things aren't super friendly whenever we're going through a divorce, right? So even though our son-in-law knows that that's Dad's house, what's his lawyer going to say whenever he's going through the divorce? Half that's mine, right? Those are things that we got to plan for.